connected to live stream. Oh my God. So we're live. Okay, there we go. Should we let Anne in?
Yep.
Let her join. Make sure she's muted. Mute. Oops, I muted you, Phil.
Birdhouse. I chose to design something a bit special.
Right, okay.
Oh, there we
Annie, 3 of us. Yep. Okay, that's all right, Phil. That's that sorted.
Right, go to view, gallery, and record. This computer.
I'll get all professional now. We're recording, Alex.
Yeah, and
well, I'm Phil.
And I'm Phil.
And welcome to the Phil and Phil Show.
So tonight on the show, we've got a really good friend of mine, Alex Catchpole. Alex is at the moment all about the microbiome. I met Alex, I think, when he was doing a vegetarian diet the first time, living at the Hare Krishna house in Brighton. And back in 2005, so that's 15 years, almost to the month, Alex, since we've met. And watched him go on his raw vegan journey and out the other end of that, and he now is very passionate and knowledgeable about the microbiome and fermented foods. So Alex,
hello,
take it away.
Where should I start?
Tell us a little bit about your journey, because you know you've had a very interesting journey, and you've come into veganism, into raw foodism, into vegetarianism, and wherever you're at.
I tried keto, paleo. I think I was just really into like states of mind and consciousness, and as a body piercer, which I was pre-meeting you, so more than 15 years ago, I was aware that getting the piercings, it had to then heal. And so I looked into a relaxation whilst you had the piercing, so it didn't hurt so much. And then actually, you know, it's obvious now, but it wasn't so much when you're not into nutrition. Obviously the food you're eating is going to be probably the biggest influencer on how quick a piercing is going to heal. So I got into very basic nutrition, not really knowing, but just the simple stuff, just cutting out the sugars and the chocolates and the crap food and eating more whole foods. And it just impacted my life, and I just felt better. And then, as you know, there's a rabbit hole you go down, and I met some raw people, yourself included, and Pete and other people that were doing really, really well on the raw diet. And so that was where my attention went. And very quickly, Sandor Katz was probably the biggest influence, but his really articulate, really beautiful way of explaining the microbes and how we're not actually human, we're more microbe. There was some kind of cosmic understanding I got while he spoke, but then he always brought it right back to the real simple, and focusing on something, a component of you which is so small. It's just really humbling, and it just really brought all my attention to my lower energy center, and qigong started to improve, and just having that attention and that focus on looking after someone else is easier than looking after yourself. So I was just like wanting to feed the microbes, and I can really like take time to look what's going to make my microbes thrive. And I found that easier than going, what's going to make me healthy when I had addictions to sugary foods or unhealthy foods, because I find it's easier, like I say, to make someone else healthy, to make the microbes healthy. But obviously the side effect of that is that my health improved the more I looked after my microbiome.
Yeah, nice. That's also a really important one, isn't it? Is finding a way into looking after self
Yeah.
Some people do it through yoga, some people do it through food, some people do it by feeding other people, and consequently they get the good food. You know, you did it by figuring out if you looked after your microbiome looked after you. And I think that's a really important thing to remind people of, is that exact thing. The microbiome is the biology in the gut that actually is who we are, creates our personality, our fears, our, you know, what really is what gives us joy and what gives us fear. That the pathology or the bacteria in the gut, well, the pathology and the good bacteria in the gut control that, don't they, Alex?
Yeah. For me, they control everything. And I think at some point it's to put all emphasis on that can seem really extreme. But if you really break it down, they're interacting and engaging on a cellular level on every interaction a human's having. So by impacting them in a positive way, you're going to impact your fear, your emotions, your mood, your sleep, your immune system, also in a positive way.
Well,
So
can we just back up a sec? What is the microbiome?
So the microbiome, in particular, I've been the digestive system. So looking at the microbes that reside in your digestive system, and that is all sorts. So it's all other living entities. So it's also the microbes, you know, the bacteria, the fungi, the yeasts, but it's also, at this point in time, really important to remember, it's also the viruses. And all these things precede humans. They were around before there was humans. There was symbiotic relationships with different bacteria that created the human. So even in our mitochondria, our powerhouses of the cells, the mitochondria itself is actually separate DNA to human DNA. So it's actually bacteria in nature. So we have a microbiome and microbes on the skin, in the mouth, up the nose, everywhere. But I really focus on the digestive system. So the microbes that live in the gut.
So I've heard it say we have there's I think there's like 30 million cells, right, in the human body. I just read this online just for fun. But there's 39 trillion microbial cells, including bacteria, viruses, fungi. So there's more microbes than there is human cells in our body, right?
But yeah, by a long way. I read a great book, and I've heard this said by it's like 10 to 1. So there's 10 times, and it's hard for the brain to really comprehend. So there's more other entities that make up, my behavior, my mood than actually human. It's really hard. But if 10 to 1 on a cellular level, but if you look at genes, it's 100 to 1. And genes are the information that are either switched on, switched off, that are affecting how we move, live, emote, sleep. So to be 100 to 1 genetic information that's other than self, to me, you know, back then, this was 10, 15 years ago, it was so hard to wrap my head around. It almost gave me one of those kind of mystical moments where it's just like, wow, my mind can't comprehend that. It was so vast. It took me into a state of almost like shock and awe and wonder, because my mind couldn't get its head around in its limited, you know, capabilities of understanding. There's more genetic information standing here that's not me than me. So in that whole, you know, that quest for understanding who we are, where we're going, what our role here is as humans, it really put a big shift. And I think then at that time I was definitely raw vegan. I just went, wow, I'm just going to double down on this, because intellectually and, you know, not physiologically, but philosophically, it's just I loved it. It just put me into a state of awe to really try and wrap my head around. There's more genetic information residing in Alex and on Alex than actual the DNA.
And our skin too, all over our skin, for sure.
Yeah, exactly. And so that quenched my thirst for that awe factor, and then I was really into diet and affecting
So
my
I mean, like right now in today's world, we have a war on this system. We have a war on the microbiome, the bacteria, and it's not to say when we have an imbalance that it's not unhealthy, but there's a war on this thing that is part of us and more of us than we are, but there's a war on it, like the antibacterial soaps everywhere and the antivirals and the antibiotics, like everything is an attack on life. And it's like we're not saying that like it's good to have lots of like an imbalance of too much candida or whatever. It's like there's a war on life, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a misunderstanding. Some might say it's designed that way. But as we've come to understand more the importance of our symbiotic partnership, you'd have thought we'd have, let's backtrack. Let's really, retract that we've told everyone that bacteria is bad. Because for me, the mainstream information, the mainstream knowledge, it isn't bad. There's a very, very, very small percentage that are detrimental. And yes, they need to be kept in check. But the vast majority will improve your immune system. They will improve your immune response. They test your immune response. So the more you get rid of them, the more you're going to see autoimmune disorders. And that is the case. So I would have thought that the people in power, or in the medical system at least, would backtrack and take that back.
I think it's what a lot of people don't really even know. Like we assume they know, and I'm sure there are some that do, but they don't. Like they're just like, oh, you're sick, you need an antibiotic, or you need to kill this bad thing. And it's like this. I think it's a lack of understanding and a lack of awareness of the fact that there is this relationship. Especially when you hear somebody, who is educated, like Zach Bush. I'm sure you've heard of him, and his talk about the importance of this interconnection, with not just our body and our skin and the microbes, it's also the relationship in the soil too. So
yeah. No, I think you've nailed it. That's exactly right. Maybe I'm giving the medical system too much credit, that when they had this information, they'd then reverse it. And Zach Bush, he might even be the guy that said this. We've got this understanding now. It will take 5 to 10 years before it filters through and actually becomes mainstream practice.
Yeah, that's probably 5 to 10 years in America, which therefore means it will be 10 to 20 years before it gets to Britain.
Right.
Well, we'll accelerate that.
we will accelerate that, because that's our mission, is to bring whatever latest information we can about health, lifestyle, diet to the show and to the two people. Right. Let's bring it on. One of the things I know, Alex, with me, since I was thinking about this a while ago, since I stopped eating any cow dairy of any description, the interesting thing is I've had no upset stomachs. I've had zero stomach issues, or bugs, what people call them, since I've stopped any cow products. Really interesting.
Yeah, and how long ago is that? That's a while now, isn't it?
Wow. Yeah, 1994.
Wow.
It's just looking back, going, but every year people expect to get at least one stomach bug, as we call them in England, a stomach upset, sickness, diarrhea, whatever. It's just expected. That's what happens.
So you've not had anything like that since 94?
No.
Wow. That speaks volumes.
Not food related.
Sure.
I mean, I was still drinking a lot, and I made myself really sick through drinking, from trying to numb my disconnect from spirit. But not a stomach upset bug that was going around, as they say.
Yeah.
And even then I was eating cow and sheep's dairy, but it was stopping the cow dairy that was the big winner for me regarding that type of thing.
Interesting. Yeah, well, as I'm sure to a much greater understanding than me, there's some in the milk, and a lot to do with autoimmune. The white blood cells, you know, the cow milk, it's not human milk, so it's not, as you guys would agree, it's not healthy that humans have it, and it's not, so the body doesn't know how to react with it, so it's almost like it kind of attacks it, or it's kind of like, what do we do with this? So it's like treating what you're thinking as food as almost like a poison, and it's kind of in this like alert state, because it's like, what is this almost foreign intruder coming into the body?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's exactly right, isn't it? I mean, it's like, I like to talk about being species specific. And one of the things that's really, really obvious is dairy products from another animal is not human food. It's really simple. You know, if it's like, if you imagine walking into one of our major supermarkets and there was shelves of women's breast milk, people would think it was disgusting. But it's fine to suck on the nipple of a cow. It's unbelievable. It's just wrong. So yeah, that's my little rant.
Yeah, I mean,
Wrong.
especially the way that it's consumed in the Western world. I mean, like I don't drink dairy, but like to try to step into the shoes of that, it's this like mass like dairy where people are guzzling it. But you look to like some of the folks who, you know, maybe consume it traditionally, like in India. It's like, I think I've heard Gable talk about this. It's like they would be eating like small amounts and it would be fermented and it would be part of an overall thing. But it's here, there's like people guzzling gallons of this stuff that's been pasteurized and like, you know, heated and just like it's full of hormones and all sorts of crazy stuff. So it's just like way away from anywhere near natural, you know. So
Yeah, and I don't know if I've talked about this before, and I'm not sure if you know this or not, Alex. But when I was at Plorhatch Farm with oh man, forgive me, I've forgotten his name. The dairyman that was there.
Yeah, Tom.
Tom, yeah, Tom, bless him. Yeah, I was having a chat with Tom about this stuff, and apparently there was a guy was trying to work out why people were having so much reaction to cow's milk. So he did this test with normal cow's milk. People were highly allergic to it. He did a test to organic cow's milk, the same level of allergies. But then what he did was he tried biodynamic cow's milk, and the reaction was completely different. So he was thinking, so what's the difference then between organic and biodynamic milk? What is the real difference? And do you know what it is, Alex?
Well, the main difference is not being pasteurized.
That's one of the differences.
And then the animal welfare with the biodynamic farming, you know, they're eating natural. The biodynamic farming, you know, do the preparation, so they're eating.
But there's even a more major thing than that.
Well, let us know.
They've got their horns on.
They've got their horns.
So the horns of the cow is their connection to the stars and the cosmos.
Yeah.
Once you cut the horns off, which all milk producing cows have their horns chopped off, biodynamic cows don't. So biodynamic cows, once you chop the horns off, it changes the molecular structure of the protein in the milk.
Wow.
That was the major difference. So even raw milk had the same effect until they went to biodynamic, which is raw, horns on, in the fields. I mean, Tom's cows were fed sprouted barley, sprouted beans. No, sorry, sprouted oats and sprouted beans through the winter, and silage that was grown on the farm. And the main difference is the horns. Isn't that interesting?
That's very
fascinating.
Yes.
So I just going to go back to the microbiome, and I think what's really hard is for people to get the concept of like these bacteria, because everything's like invisible. We don't see it. We see this physical body in the mirror, and the analogy I like is, and you have to kind of go out into nature and see this, but in America it's very stark. I don't know about in England, but you go to the Midwest in America, like I've driven across Nebraska, and you you see these like fields of monoculture farms, and the land is dead. There's like the soil is really, really thin. It's really dry. It's like all mechanized. There's like, you know, they see the sprayers on the field and the, you know, the aircraft coming in and spraying the fields. The soil has got no life whatsoever. And to keep those plants alive, they need to be like spraying continually. They need to be babying those crops. Otherwise the bugs just come in and kill them, you know. But then we compare that to, you know, a rainforest or something like that, whatever it is, or a natural garden, or a woodland, or a virgin forest that is teeming with bacteria, with life, with fungus, with yeast, with mold, and you go in there and you don't go, oh my God, this place is dirty and disgusting. It's like you go in there and go, you take a breath, and it's like the energy feels amazing, and you feel healthy in that environment. Compared to like you're out in the Midwest in these farms and you're just like, oh my God, this feels awful. I feel depressed. And like the exact energies that people feel when their microbiome is unhealthy is the depression, or versus like this feeling of being alive and joyful. And so that's my analogy on this, that maybe can help people.
I think that's a great analogy. It's the monoculture is lacking life. And then you go to, like you listed, all those other environments that are just teeming with life. A lot of it is not visible to the naked eye, but their interactions are making the plants healthier, the animals healthier. So you can't see it, but like you say, you can feel it. You know, it's just teeming, it's emanating life, isn't it?
Yeah, and we don't go, oh my God, let's spray this forest with like antibacterial soap or something. It's like, no, we just go, wow, it's beautiful. We don't need to do anything. It takes care of itself.
Yeah, so the majority of our fields still are the same in England now. If you drive, you know, I was driving across the Ridgeway in Berkshire, and I said to my partner, do you know what? There's no food. There's nothing to eat. As far as you could see, the ground was dead. When I say no food, right, there was cereals.
Yeah.
But you couldn't, as far as you could see, you couldn't stop the van and pick something to eat. So
Wow.
it was just cereals and rapeseed or canola in the States. It's just literally as far as my eyes could see in 360 degrees, there was dead soil full of cereals.
Yeah. Which are probably there to feed the livestock anyway.
But yeah, probably the majority is there to feed the livestock, to feed the people. But I was shocked that actually it hadn't dawned. I think the word is, it hadn't dawned on me before that there's all this land and nothing to eat.
Wow.
Yeah.
So just going to the microbiome again, Alex, talking a little bit about Roundup and glycophosphate, which is the main ingredient of Roundup, which is a herbicide. No, Zach Bush talks about it. He talks about it really. Have you heard Zach Bush take on it, Alex?
I've heard different bits of him. I'm not sure I've heard this soundbite.
Well, basically what he's saying is that Roundup is antibiotic.
Well, glyphosate or is that glyphosate?
Yeah, that's it.
Glyphosate.
Yeah,
was actually patented originally as an antibiotic.
Actually, it was from what I remember. It's all to do with Agent Orange from the Vietnamese War.
What?
When they defoliated the trees so they could see. But what he's saying Roundup is actually an antibiotic. It doesn't kill the plant, it destroys the microbiome, and then the plant dies.
Yeah.
So if people are eating nowadays in England, right, wheat is sprayed with Roundup to kill it off so they can harvest it quicker and more efficiently, and on the day they want to harvest it. So things like oilseed rape and linseed or flax in the States is, so a mate of mine was telling me they spray it off with Roundup to kill it so they can harvest it when they want. Then they spray the pods with glue so the pods don't burst open until it's harvested with the combine.
Wow.
Oh my God.
So imagine eating that.
Wow. No thanks.
And there's gone your microbiome, right?
Yeah.
So Alex, bringing you back in there, we've all been eating a microbiome deficient diet. We've also, now we've learned, been eating a diet that actually destroys our microbiome.
Yeah.
Which is where the average person's at, right, Alex? The average person is that not knowing, no blame or shame here at all, but the average person is buying a pesticide-laden food that's covered in Roundup, which has destroyed the plant's microbiome. When they ingest that, it's going to destroy their microbiome. Then what do we do, Alex?
Well, soil is a big thing, isn't it? The microbiome of the soil, you know.
So I guess eating organic food there, then, Alex, would help with that, wouldn't it? And also it would help with the stop of destruction.
Exactly. I think my answer, I was going on to a bigger kind of answer. For the individual, it would be attention to replenishing their microbiome. So the soil.
So absolutely. So yeah, maybe my question was a bit too broad on what can they do. So what foods would they need to bring in to feed their microbiome and create microbiome?
Yeah, great question.
Is that a better question?
Yeah, that makes more sense. Otherwise, it's a big answer. And
it's too global, right?
It's too global, but eating organic is important. So I think really, as with a lot of diets, it's more about what you're not eating than what you are eating. So cutting out the glyphosate, so eating organic, so people can start to heal the microbiome by, first of all, reducing all the things that are going to be damaging their microbiome. And eating sugars is going to be feeding the wrong microbes. At least it's feeding microbes. Eating those pesticide-laden foods is actually going to be having a negative effect on the microbiome. So introducing organic food is probably the best thing for the microbiome. And then fruits and vegetables are going to be a food source for your already existing microbes. So I'm big into probiotics, and it's obviously a massive industry, but more and more I look into gut health. It's more and more, by the age of 7, you have a fairly well-established gut microbiome, and we can talk about breastfeeding and vaginal births and different things that are going to affect that establishment of your microbiome. But then we're talking microbes that are then going to reside in their billions, in their trillions. By taking a few capsules of probiotics, you're not likely to massively change that microbiome. So for me, and this is answering your question, the most important thing you can do is feed the right microbes. So once you've cut out glyphosate-laden foods, you reduce your sugar because that's feeding the wrong microbes. You then start to introduce fruits and vegetables. They have the fiber that's going to feed the right microbes, and by feeding the right microbes, they thrive, they proliferate, and you start to get more of the microbiome, more of the microbes that way.
So what's your favorite food that you like to introduce people to, Alex, to actually where it's gonna what am I trying to think now? Yeah, what's your most favorite food that you think people can introduce to their diet that's going to make an impact?
Sauerkraut.
Right. Okay.
I just think so. I just think sauerkraut, because that crowds out the sugar-loving microbes. Phil mentioned candida, and you want some candida, but oh my God, you want it in check, and you want it way down the list. You don't want candida to be one of the most dominant microbes. And sugar, candida loves sugar. So by eating more fermented foods, you get the right kind of microbes thriving, and then it's almost like a dynamic hierarchy. So it's always going to change. You might have one meal that's got more sugars, so it's so dynamic, and literally one meal can change your microbiome, can change the profile. In a 24-hour period, your microbes are the equivalent of, I think it's 10 or 15 different generations. They're small, and their lifespans, it's so fast. You can really change your microbiome with just one meal. So
Wow.
sauerkraut feeds the right microbes, and it deprives the wrong microbes. And then in the sauerkraut, you can put in Jerusalem artichoke, leek, onion. All these things are really high in prebiotics, and that's an even better branch of fiber. You know, there's so many different variations on fiber, but prebiotic fiber is the absolute out and out preferred food source of the microbes that you want to take, that you want to thrive. So for me, it'd be a fermented leek, Jerusalem artichoke. You're going to put a bit of cabbage in there to kind of bulk it out, and then maybe onion and garlic, and then that's really high prebiotic fiber. You do the fermentation process, so you then create probiotics, and those probiotics, like I say, it's unlikely that you're going to encourage the billions or the millions of probiotics in the sauerkraut to take residence in your digestive system, but as they pass through, they're almost like adding support to your existing microbes. So as they go through, they help to digest things, and they kind of work alongside the beneficial microbes in your digestive system. And as they do that, the unbeneficial, candida isn't necessarily pathogenic, but you definitely don't want it in too larger amounts. So it just kind of helps to move this dynamic hierarchy in a direction that favors you.
Yeah, I think it's kind of like a reset to the system. And prebiotics are a really interesting topic. There's a lot of prebiotics on the market that are actually isolated from plants, and people actually have a lot of allergies to those. But if you eat the whole plants, pretty much a whole food diet is a prebiotic diet. Sure, there are certain plants like Jerusalem artichoke that are higher in those things, but an actual whole food diet is a prebiotic diet. And it's like people aren't eating that. They're just like, well, I got my, 2 veg, like, or whatever, it's like they're not. But if you eat a whole food diet with a lot of variety and, some amount of sauerkraut or kimchi or something like that, you are getting a prebiotic diet right there, like just through eating healthily. So.
Yeah, that's one point I actually missed off. Thanks, Phil. Diversity, mixing it up. Like, I think, you mentioned the 2 veg. People might like potato and runner beans, and that's it. And that's 2 veg. And they think, well, I'm having veg, but it's the same veg all the time. So diversity is so important. Because you got, like I say, the book I've been reading recently, they're not even sure how many different variations on fiber there are. Because if you cook something, the fiber structure changes. If you eat something raw, you get a different fiber structure. If the duration, the natural kind of aging of fruits and vegetables, you get different fiber. There's so many different fiber structures, and obviously from plant to plant, from vegetable to vegetable, you're going to get different fiber structures. So I'm starting to understand just really the importance of diversity and mixing it up, not just having potato, right? But it's a vegetable, you eat it all the time.
So yeah, I want to go to a subtlety in that. In an important, I think it's an important subtlety, an important factor is, if we're eating like all store-bought produce, we're not necessarily getting all of these things. Like natural food that comes out of the environment has, the bacteria on them in a subtle way, and we're so disconnected. Everything's like shipped for a long way in refrigerated storage. And, it's been, put in ethylene gas, and it doesn't have those natural microbes anymore. So if we can be eating out of our gardens and our natural environment, and it's subtle, it's not like, oh my God, I got to eat tons of soil. It's just like, getting an amount of food from the natural environment, an apple from a tree, greens from the garden or from the wild, and that carries with it a subtle element of natural bacteria that helps to create balance there.
Absolutely. Like we've already said, all these plants, all these vegetables we're talking about, all fruits, they've already got their own microbiome. So an apple from a tree is the equivalent of taking a few shop-bought capsules of probiotics. The apple has the pectin, has the fiber, which is going to feed your microbiome. But like you said, it also has its own probiotics. So it has its own microbiome on the apple. So an apple that you're not washing thoroughly but eating, it's going to have some natural bacteria that's going to really boost your microbiome. And then vegetables that are closer to the earth, you don't want to scrub all the dirt off. Like if there's massive amounts, you want to get most of it off. We're not, like you say, suggesting eating too much soil, but a little bit there. It's a really cheap way to get probiotics, because the earth is got its very advanced, sophisticated microbiome going on.
So Alex, I'm aware that you need to go shortly.
I've got to help my partner with kids' bed. We've got 2 young kids, so it's tricky, and they're different ages, so different bedtime. So I'm aware.
How long we got? What do we got?
I reckon 10 minutes.
All right.
But thanks for flagging that up, Phil.
Well, what I want to do, Alex, as well, is make people aware of what you do personally and what you offer, because I think that the creations that you make and what you offer is revolutionary. And I really want to plug what you're doing, because I think it's really not so much for people in America, but definitely for our viewers in the UK to know what you're doing. The fact that I know you do a market stall, you do one in Brighton some weeks and one in Lewes some weeks, is that right?
That's right, yeah, alternate Saturdays. So I do the Florence Road Market in Brighton and the Lewes Farmers Market in Lewes.
So and what kind of products do you produce and sell then, Alex?
Well, sauerkraut is my USB, is like my main product, and obviously I have fresh sauerkraut, and alongside that I have fresh sauerkraut juice, but it has a shorter shelf life, obviously, and it is harder to post and package. So I'm trying to work out a way that I can scale my business a little bit. And sauerkraut, as I clearly said, I'm maybe biased, but I think it has so many health benefits, not least the probiotics. But I'm using the vegetables, and as Phil said, all vegetables have the desired fiber that the gut bug's going to like. So fermented fibers, so Jerusalem artichoke, leeks, but the cabbage, the carrots, the onions, they all have these fibers. So I dehydrate the sauerkraut at a really low temperature, below 42 degrees, and then add that into other products. And then you do lose some probiotics with the dehydration process, but you don't damage any of the prebiotics. Prebiotic fiber is one of the fiber structures that does get very depleted and degraded through cooking. And leeks and Jerusalem artichokes, onions and garlic are vegetables that people don't generally eat raw. So you end up cooking them, but the more you cook them, the more you cook out the prebiotic fiber. So I thought, wow, fermented onions, garlics, Jerusalem artichokes, leeks taste fantastic, but you're not losing any prebiotic fiber. And then dehydrating at low temperatures preserves all the prebiotic fiber. So I'm adding that already fermented prebiotic fiber into seed mixes. So I do like a curry seed mix, add it into some crackers. I'm doing some crackers now, but spreading them thinner and using more flax and chia seeds, so they've got more of a crisp. So it's like a sauerkraut crisp. I even added it into chocolate the other day, and actually it gives it like a sour tang. And then I just added in a handful of sour cherries, and it's almost when you're eating the chocolate, you search for the sour. For me, I love sour cherries, so the sauerkraut chocolate is now quickly becoming one of my favorite products, because people love that sour. You get the sweet from the coconut sugar and then the bitter from the cacao. So you get this whole kind of entourage. You can get some umami kind of flavor from the sauerkraut. So sour, umami, bitter, sweet. So it's a real mouth explosion, I should say.
Wow.
So how long do you ferment your creations for?
So the original sauerkraut, I do it for a minimum of 4 weeks, and normally for 6.
That's great. Yeah.
at this time of year, it's 6 weeks. In the summer that we've just had, it was like kicking off. So after 4 weeks, the acidity, I just test the pH. It had a really low acidity. It was fully active. So it's kind of 4 weeks in a good warm English summer, and then 6 weeks at the colder times of year.
That's great. Yeah, that time frame. A lot of people go, "Oh, well, I did it for a week," and it's like, no, you really need to do it for at least 4 weeks to just get a really good batch. So I love making sauerkraut. It's so fun. So
it seems to hit a real crescendo, from that longer ferment. There's some benefits from the short ferment, but the more you drop the acidity, the more the gut bugs are going to be able to survive that acidity. And if you're ingesting it, they're then going to be more resilient in your digestive system, which is obviously very acidic as well.
You probably notice the digestion is better because, some people go, I did sauerkraut and it gave me gas and stuff. And I think if you're eating like short fermented kraut, it's still got all of that very tough fiber in that cabbage and it can be hard to digest. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I was lucky enough to have chat with Sandor Katz the other day, and he was talking about, in his basement, he has 6-month-old sauerkraut. That's not for everyone. And when he does workshops, obviously he's not advocating that to the beginner, and slow and gentle introduction into sauerkraut is the best way, in which case, yes, you do a shorter ferment, because as I'm sure you guys can imagine, a 6-month fermented sauerkraut is going to have some serious tang. And I love that flavor. I haven't intentionally fermented sauerkraut for 6 months, but I've looked at labels and it's like, wow, I've done the initial ferment for probably 6 weeks, and then it's been jarred up. But because it's reached that 6-week window and it's very acidic, it's then resistant to any pathogenic bacteria, and then can be shelf stable or fridge stable. And I've eaten sauerkraut that's been in my fridge for over 6 months, and it has a real zing to it. So yeah, it's not for everyone, but if you have that kind of palate, then people really enjoy that long ferment.
Yeah, that sounds great. I tell you what, Alex, it's making my mouth water. You talking about a 6 month, a 6 month ferment is making me water, man. Brilliant. Well, Alex, that's nearly 5 to 7.
Okay.
So do you have what's your website, Alex?
So organigy.co.uk.
Okay. And they can just check you out there, and it says what market you're on and any other products you sell you have on your website. And do you do any education too, or is it just products?
So I did start to do some workshops, and then that all got kiboshed because of this whole Corona thing. There was some definite interest in the person-to-person workshops. So I have done a few online workshops, but mostly just with the 2 young kids. I'm focusing on the products. I need to build the business and keep the orders up. So I have done workshops and I will do them again. But at the minute, if you look at my website, it's really product based. But I do a Facebook and Instagram, and do little kind of infomercial type things about, if I'm making a fermented product, I'll kind of give people a behind the scenes look at what I'm doing. And, I activate seeds quite a lot, which is almost the shortest fermentation process. It's a similar concept, but you're only doing it for 24 hours. But by activating a seed, as I know both you guys obviously know very well, you're getting rid of all the anti-nutrients, all the phytates, the lectins and stuff. So there's a lot of interest at that in the UK at the minute. I don't know if you've heard about this, Phil.
No.
I do my market stalls and people would come across and go, activated, what's that? But now I have people coming across going, oh, I've heard of this. So you soak and sprout the seeds. So I'm having some really lovely conversations with people at the market about soaking and activating of nuts and seeds.
Yeah, that's really good, Alex. When I first started doing that and I was doing the festivals with that same product, people would just be like, but it's so expensive. And I'd tell them about the process and they'd be just like, yeah, and?
Exactly.
So it's really great now that people know it, and they're I used to make, as you know, all those seeds and things. I used to take them to our local health food shop. This was about 13 years ago, I suppose I was doing it. The sell by date would run out and I'd get them back.
Yeah.
So, and the girls in our local health food shop said, if you were doing it now, Phil, you'd probably do all right. I said, yeah, I've kind of gone off the boil a bit now. Well, I've personally moved through that phase.
Yeah.
So I'm not really doing any nuts and seeds anymore. So, I've kind of, so as I've evolved through those stages, I don't provide that anymore. Do you know what I mean? I'm then providing the next step where I'm at.
Exactly. Well, it makes sense. You inspired people, myself included, along the way. So you've left a trail of positivity as you've gone. But it wouldn't be any point you promoting, activating nuts and seeds if you're like, well, I don't eat it. I think you've got to be in alignment with what you're kind of producing, which is why I'm going to just double down on sauerkraut because I love it, because it can be local, it can be seasonal. You can do it yourself, which is to Phil's point why I do workshops. Because if you buy a jar of sauerkraut from me, at the minute it's biodynamic, and then as you guys know, the whole process involved is quite expensive. For the same price as one jar you buy, you could buy enough to make 10 jars yourself. You've just got to have the time and the knowledge and the experience to do it yourself. So I'm all about
the space
and the space. Yeah. So I do.
So if enough people were from this show, for example, if people were really interested in running an online class, would you do one?
Absolutely. Yeah, I love doing it. I love chatting. We're only just getting started. I'm sorry, I have to go.
Yeah, no, I can feel kind of.
Well, let's set something up on our channel. We could do it on a different day than our main show, and if you want to do a presentation through our channel, we can do that as well as your own. You can multi-stream it. So
yeah. I'm definitely up for it. I love engaging with people and, motivating, inspiring people to do it themselves. Because then at the end of the day, it has to come from them. It might come from them, and that's why they're buying my sauerkraut. But I'd much rather, they were motivated and inspired and capable of doing it themselves if they so wish. And like you say, had the space and time.
Yeah. It's our vision is to the Phil and Phil show is to, really get this information out to as many people as possible. But we're not the only ones. We want to do other people to share their gifts and use our channel and just get it out there to educate as many different avenues as possible. So,
well, I'd love to do I don't know, let's say a prebiotic rich sauerkraut, and just show people the basic sauerkraut and how to add in different vegetables. The salt ratio is important, the time duration, and then it's through Sandor Cats and then being on UK fermentation websites, I've got some really good tips and tricks that have helped me out. And you learn through error, but because I've learned, I can then share the knowledge which I've extracted from other people, or other people have, shared with me. So I'm really up for doing workshops and helping set people up so that they don't have, 3 fails before they get a great sauerkraut. You give them the blueprint so they can get the sauerkraut that they want first time round.
I like that for sure. Alex's sauerkraut blueprint.
Great. Yes. Well, Alex, you better get off and go take care of your kids. It's been fabulous having you join us on our show today. We really appreciate you and anyone you brought along. I noticed on Facebook there's a few people watching live, so just appreciating those, and you probably brought some people. So yeah, thank you for sharing your knowledge and your time away from your family to come on our show. So thank you.
Yeah, no, you're welcome. I love what you guys are doing too. So yeah, no, it's a real pleasure. I was really pleased when Phil invited me. So yeah, I'll be pleased to do Alex Blueprint fermentation Phil and Phil collaboration in the future.
Fab, let's do it, Alex. Go look after your woman and your children.
All right, thanks guys.
It's been great chatting with you. We'll have you on again and we'll chat some more.
Thanks so much. Cheers, guys.
Cheers, Alex. Good night, mate.
Thanks a lot. See you guys.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
I was just wondering if he was going to remember to turn off, or just leave.
So we're still okay. He just left.
Yeah, we're still going, man. We're still on it.
We're still live. So yeah, I didn't want him. Yeah, I appreciate you really taking care of him, so he didn't miss out on his family time there. So.
Well, he might not be allowed to come and play if we don't.
That's funny.
Oh, so it's me and thee then, Phil.
Yeah. So, I mean, I really love that discussion, and just, you know, we could have talked forever on it. I love that topic, and just going back, like we didn't even cover, like he started to cover up, like where did we go wrong, and like how did all of this get out of balance, and he touched on it, going back to like, you know, we're born into an environment where, you know, first of all, like we're not birthed properly, and born into a sanitary environment, and you know, we're not given breast milk, a lot of people, or are given breast milk for a very short period of time. All of these things like, you know, natural birth, breast milk, all create that healthy start in life. But sadly today, children are not being given that like head start. And it's like, it's really hard to recover that, you know, recover that status. So, oh, hi, Anne. Looks like you joined us.
Hey, Annie.
So just, yeah, I mean, that's where we're at, and it just makes me think about that. So
Yeah, and you know that Zach Bush adding that other level to, you know, the fact that not just the fact that our soil is dead and depleted, but actually, you know, it was a big revelation for me when he talked about Roundup being actually an antibiotic, and it's actually destroying the microbiome of the fields and in your garden. You know, those of you that just spray it willy-nilly around your garden, I know loads of people do.
it's sprayed everywhere. There's something called the shikimate pathway or something, right? So they originally said, oh, it doesn't harm the human because, you know, we're not a plant, so we don't have the shikimate pathway, forgetting the fact that our whole microbiome is like plant-like. It's a microbiome. It's, you know, microorganism has that pathway. So it's destroying that whole system. And it's like you say, it's sprayed everywhere. It's sprayed in the parks. It's sprayed outside your homes, like everywhere. It's just crazy.
Well, I remember, Phil, when I remember there's two things I remember. When I was young on an estate where my granddad was living and working, and just down from his house, literally, we used to walk down the track and down into the bottom, and there was a lake, literally 100 yards from his door. And I remember when it got overgrown with weeds and things like that. So they drained it down and they sprayed the lake with Roundup. Because back then it was said that it wasn't harmful to aquatic life or animals.
Wow.
And actually what Zach Bush is saying, it's a water base, so it's water soluble. So actually it gets right into the water. So it's not at all what we were led to believe. You know, I remember my dad telling me when I was a kid, I'd have been about 8 or 9, I suppose, and he was talking to me about this poison, and he said, "Well, the thing is, Phil," he said, "well, you know, you spray it on the plants, and when it hits the soil, it becomes inert." That was the selling point of Roundup. Was when it hits ground, it's inert, it's perfectly safe. And I said to my dad, "Dad, how can a poison not be poisoned because it's touched the ground?"
Right.
Well, that's just how it works, son. You know, that's ever so clever. You know, this science is that it's not poisonous when it hits the ground. And you know, as an 8 or 10-year-old, whatever I was, man, I just couldn't understand how a poison could all of a sudden not be poisonous.
Right. Yeah, I had this discussion with someone like 15 years ago. They were spraying. It was like a business. Not 10 years ago, maybe. I was in Tucson where this office was, and this guy is like, it was like an eco kind of community. He was like spraying around. He was like, yeah, it's just totally natural. And then meanwhile, 5 or 6 years later, we have all of these lawsuits against, you know, Monsanto, Bayer, of people getting cancer.
Yeah, because of course it was perfectly safe.
Yeah. But it's like, how many times do we need to learn this lesson? I mean, we had, you know, the 1960s, Rachel Carson, you know, with her book Silent Spring. You know, for me, that's a famous book. That was a turning point for me. It's like, well, what are we doing? We're spraying these chemicals everywhere. It's killing the animal life, the plant life. But we're just continuing to celebrate these chemicals. And it's like, well, did we not remember that? Like, how, like, have we just been totally marketed to that we don't see the obvious? It just confuses me so much. Like, how can we not see this? It's repeated again and again. DDT is good for me. And then, okay, suddenly, oops, no, it wasn't. Sorry, we messed up. Like,
Hey Phil, have I told you before they used to make for children's bedrooms? They used to make DDT wallpaper
that's crazy.
and
It's just
mosquitoes would,
ludicrous.
and I forget the lifespan of it, but the lifespan of it was a long time. It was years.
Right,
And if a mosquito or anything landed on it, they were dead, man.
right.
Protect your children from the environment. Give them DDT loaded wallpaper.
God.
I think that was in the 50s. I think that was
Yeah.
the 50s, maybe the 60s.
Yep. We have work to do, Phil. We have a lot of work to do.
Again, Phil, my mum was telling me a story about when we lived in Blenheim Park, that just up the end of our track there was a big field, and the crop dusters used to come. They'd come over the woods. I've told this story about where I used to live, but when I was very little in my pushchair, the pram, my mum said she used to push me up to the fields to watch them spraying.
Oh God!
And that would have been DDT.
That explains you what you have challenges, Phil. Like you've had a lot of health challenges.
I think that would explain the brain damage, wouldn't it, Phil?
Well, no, I mean, there's some things that have been really hard for you. I know in terms of getting healthy. So, I didn't have that. I lived in a city, which has probably had other things, but I lived kind of near a woodland, and they weren't spraying that because it wasn't farmland. So,
yeah,
like living in the country might have been worse for you on some level. It definitely gave you more of an appreciation of nature, but then the farms probably screwed up your microbiome and your.
Oh, I mean, I had a chronic fatigue. What do you call it? Screen done by a guy down in Devon, and it came back with. That's one thing. My brain isn't very great. It came back with.
You'll remember in a second. I mean,
it's
just like this thing of like people go, oh well, like I took one probiotic, or I eat a salad every day, and it's like, we're just like, well, it's it's a hard one, but it's not enough. Like we're in this onslaught continually.
Oh, Phil, it's come back now. So
okay, I knew it would.
it was Lindane.
Ah, okay.
So Lindane, another deadly thing, right? But they used Lindane in shampoo.
Oh, okay.
We used it on when we used to deflea the dogs and the ferrets and chickens. And I remember my granddad had it in these pots that would have been like 2-pound pots with wooden handles on the sides and holes in, and you'd just shake it over the dog. Then you'd get your hands and you'd rub it in.
Right.
And then they'd shake, and you would just be engulfed in this big cloud of white dust, which is now Lindane. So they found that intracellularly in my body.
Wow.
And also it was in timber, pressure impregnated timber treatments. It was in that. And when I was an apprentice, we used to get our timbers from Blenheim sawmills, and we get it on the trailer. We literally, it would come out of the tank onto the trailer. By the time we'd loaded it all up onto the scaffold for the roof, it would be running down my arms and out of my elbows of my jumper.
Wow. And
that also was Lindane, but there was also a thing called polyphenol chlorine or something. And that was intracellularly in my blood as well. And that was also from, when I looked them up, they were also from wood treatments. So, all these hidden poisons that are destroying our microbiome and our internal bacterial life, which we had no clue. Well, the layperson had no clue what was going on. So yeah, that's been a challenge. Once that's been in for a certain length of time, of course, it gets pushed into the tissue, and then that's when it's really difficult to get those certain fat soluble toxins. And also because the lymphatic system is lipid based, fat based, they get absorbed well into that. So trying to clean that out, you don't do that from a 7-day juice fast.
No.
You know, that's a whole nother story trying to get that stuff out.
And, you know, it's really interesting. You look back at all the different, you know, pandemics and outbreaks, and they're actually tied to, like, they're all blamed on the virus, but they actually all have ties to certain times when there was a lot of use of pesticides. So, you know, mad cow disease, for example, actually it was put as like, oh, this is just a virus, but it's like there's actually ties to the dips that the animals were being put into, the chemical dips, and that was actually what was causing the problem. But it's like this distraction. It's like, oh no, that's not it. It's just a virus. Like, it's a new virus. But actually, what was happening? It was like, and you can look at pretty much all of the pandemics, and it's connected to some level of a new pesticide or DDT, or, you know, a new vaccine was put onto the market. There's actually a connection with that pollutant going into the body, causing these reactions. And it's linked up, but it's like, no, it's a new virus. It's just a virus. It's like, well, wait a minute. There's like, can we look at the whole picture here? So
that conveniently then gets stuffed into a conspiracy theory, doesn't it? And that's where,
right.
You know, people that, one of the things that I found is when I'm talking about anything like that, people that don't want to know, all they do is file it in the conspiracy theory folder.
Right.
And that conspiracy theory folder is really not very useful, because maybe I'm not 100% accurate. Maybe I'm a bit wacky. However, there appears to have been truths in all these wacky, mad conspiracy theories that I've talked about. You know, after this pandemic, a friend of mine, I was in the supermarket at the beginning, and I was down from her, and she shouted across, "You've been telling us about this for 10 years, haven't you?" And I was like, "Yep." You know, as if I'm going to be pleased with myself.
Right.
I would have been pleased with myself if 10 years ago people hadn't have shoved me in the conspiracy theory envelope and gone, "So what makes you say that then, Phil? Why do you think that? You know,
right.
what experience have you had? What information have you got?" Because all of us that spout these things off, we've either had a personal experience of our own, or had a friend that's had that experience, or somebody that we know has given us some information.
Right.
And it's too convenient, actually, to shove it under the, as I always used to say, that's it, pick up the carpet, sweep it underneath. And the reason why we're in the mess we're in now is because people have picked up the carpet and swept it underneath. And all of a sudden, the bloody mound under the carpet has got so big they can no longer climb over the carpet.
Right.
And actually, that's the point that we're at.
Yeah.
We can't.
And, you know, we're totally okay being wrong, like, but we're gonna express those thoughts, and like, let's have a discussion about it. And maybe we're a little bit off, maybe we're wrong, but let's discuss that these potential things may not be the best ever. So, but I was just thinking the other day, I was like, I've got, you know, an aunt who's a nurse, and, you know, she's really having a hard time with like the things that I'm saying. But I was like thinking about it, I was like, wow, the things that I'm saying are questioning her whole life for the past 30 years, like the administration of drugs and vaccines. And it's like, I'm just asking the question, like, and I'm willing to be wrong, but what I'm saying is like putting into question what she's done her whole life. And it's like, well, I'm not judging you. I'm just like, can we just ask this question? Like, what went wrong? Like, where did we go wrong? And why are we so unhealthy in modern society? I'm not judging you for what you've done, but like, we're in a bad situation, and we're not getting healthier, and we're not getting better, and the drugs are not working. So what are we going to do about it? It's like,
and Phil, to add to that now, which really gets up my goat, is none of the powers that be, none of the agencies, none of the governments, none of the effing health ministers are talking about health.
Not at all.
None
not
of them.
Once.
None of them stand on the television and, you know, they've stopped people going to the gym. They've stopped people going out and walking. They've stopped people communicating with each other. They've stopped people cuddling. They've stopped people shaking hands. They've stopped people going out. Some people that go to restaurants, that's where they eat their best meal of the day or of the week, of the month, when they go to a restaurant. It's insanity. Stuff on a mask. Give yourself.
So why do you think this is? Why are people not getting that? Like what? Like to me, to us, it seems like something's wrong here. It's like they're not talking about health, but people are going along with it, going, "Oh, these are public health policies. We need to follow these policies to be healthy." And it's like, all right, great. I'll maybe there's some truth to some of these health policies, but what about this whole other elephant in the room? Like, why can't people see that? Like, I don't understand.
Yeah, why are we so radical? We're talking about, there's a virus that apparently. Oh,
Distraction.
Yes, someone's just said that they've put some questions on YouTube Live. Can we have a look, please?
Oh, wow, we're on YouTube Live now. Let me click on it. One sec. I hope the sound doesn't come in. Hang on. I might need to mute it quickly.
I put some comments on YouTube Live. Take a look. Can we do that? Tim.
Oh, there you go. I paused it.
No
God. Oh my God. Look at it. Wow.
Oh, really? Is that a whole new world for it? I can't see that. So you've got to do it.
There we go. Said it, always learning when I listen to you. Somebody, I'm not sure who it is. Merry Christmas. The iron curtain the government has put up is not allowing us the full information of where it's come from. Also, vaccines have dire effects on human in its early stages. They are pushing for pregnant women to take it, and they know it's going to affect the next generations. I'm not really sure a question though. So,
okay, great. So he's put. So actually, what he's put is I've put some comments on your YouTube on YouTube Live. Take a look.
Well, thanks for doing that. It just says Tarya, so I'm not sure who Tarya is. So.
No, I don't know who Tarya is either. I think if it's the same person, I know who it is.
So first time streaming to YouTube, so I didn't have that open, so I wasn't watching it. So, this is Tim from Whitney. Hi, Tim from Whitney.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, Tim. Yeah, cool.
So yeah, I think we're like, why the disconnect? Like, why are people not getting it? And it's like, I would think it'd be even more obvious now. Why? Like, come on, people. Like,
why isn't the health minister? This really pisses me off. Why isn't the health minister talking about health? Why is the health minister talking about avoiding health?
Yeah.
Why is he talking about? The only thing he's talking about is things that are detrimental to our health. You're going to wear a mask that is going to reduce your ability to absorb oxygen. I talked to a scientist friend of mine the other day, really interesting about masks, right? So the research that he's done, and it shows, and I'm not surprised, is masks actually aerosol the virus. So they make it worse. So actually the potential from you catching the virus from someone wearing a mask goes up, and their potential from getting bacterial pneumonia goes. The mask wearer, their likelihood of catching bacterial pneumonia goes up. Some people have been found that when they've put a mask, so some guy was admitted into hospital, he had to put his mask on. Within a few minutes of getting that, he was getting all faint and out of breath. They stuck an oxygen meter on his finger. They found his oxygen was 93%. He took his mask off within minutes it was back to 100%.
Right.
And I'm not saying that does that to every single person. I'm not saying that.
Right. We're not black and white. We're not saying don't ever wear a mask. It's the worst thing ever. We're just like, let's just be smart about this. Let's think about this. Like what's going on. And like everyone's wearing the same mask again and again every day, not changing it. And there's a new study that just came out that actually is detrimental. Like you have to change that mask every day. It has to be clean.
Actually, Phil, those little throwaway masks that go over your ears and that are rumpled at the front, they're designed to be used in a sterile environment for a maximum of 20 minutes.
Right. Yeah, and then people say, well, doctors wear them all day. It's like, well, yeah, they're in, highly oxygenated environments, especially the surgeons. They're in oxygenated environments and they're changing it regularly. and they're not touching it because they know how to handle a mask. They're not touching it all day. And from my understanding is that surgical mask is to stop saliva going into, into the wound and into the patient. I think that's the main reason for it, but I could be totally wrong on that. So, but it's definitely, you can't compare that to going to the supermarket and wearing a dirty mask. Like, it's not the same thing.
No, it's completely. So they're not talking about, as a health minister, and I've got a lot of bones to pick, is because he's not talking about mask health.
Right.
He's not saying whatever you do, don't shove your mask on the floor of the car and then pick it up the next day when you go shopping.
Right.
They're not talking about when you get home, wash your mask, make sure it's thoroughly washed, make sure it's thoroughly dry. They're not talking about health at all. How can they be a health minister? They're just scaring the shit out of people with statistics, which, if that's true, that's fair enough. But give us some bloody guidance on how to take care of ourselves.
Yeah. If you're going to wear a mask, number one, like, this is what it should be saying, make sure it's clean. And all right, let's, maybe don't eat junk food, maybe reduce your alcohol intake, maybe get fresh air and sunlight. Like, would that be a good addition? Then maybe, like, we'd be like, all right, sure, maybe a mask is a useful addition, but it's not. It's just like, wear the mask, avoid people, it's just like, oh, can be a whole picture here? Can we have a full rounded discussion of all aspects of health,
And wear whatever mask you like. Now, if I'm on a building site, right, and I have one of my employees coming on site, and I said to them, you can wear whatever mask you like. It doesn't matter. Just wrap your scarf around your face. We're going to do asbestos, right? Now, asbestos is nowhere near as deadly as COVID-19, right? However, it will kill you. Do you think I have to be really specific about what mask they actually wear? Yes, I have to be totally specific about what mask they wear, what overalls they wear, how they handle it, of course I do.
You have filters on those too, right? So you have to change those filters out.
Yeah, we have to have big filters. We got to have what they call an FFP3, which does molecules. And then on that FFP3, we then have two filters, a choice of two filters, one for particles and one for aerosols.
Mm-hmm.
So if I had someone come on site with a bandana over their nose dealing with asbestos, in 30 years' time, I would be in prison for negligence. Mm-hmm. So this is my gripe about masks, is I have to be really precise about the masks that people wear for a certain job. And if I was in a dusty environment and someone turned up with a bloody bandana on, I would send them home.
Mm-hmm.
Or of course, negate all liability for me, because it's like, right, this is the job we're doing. This is the mask you've got to wear. And if they don't want to wear it, then I've got one of two things to do. I either send them home or give them all the responsibility, because I've given them the tools and I've given them the options of what to do. But if I provided the wrong mask, then I am liable.
Right.
And that's just a bloody building product. It isn't going to kill you tomorrow.
Right.
It might be 30 years. So that's been my big bugbear with just no zero input on health.
Right. I agree. Actually, it's been that since the start. Yep.
Yeah. And actually, as health educators, we need, you've got to drink your water. If you're going to wear a mask and you've got disposable ones, replace them often. This is key. Replace them often. And, and also, do they protect you 100% from any virus? From my research I've done on masks, I would say no. Mm-hmm. So don't put your mask on thinking you're bulletproof. That's one thing I would say. Right.
Yeah, there's that whole thing. It's like, well, if I distance, if I stay at home and I wear a mask and everyone else wears the masks, then I'm safe. It's like,
maybe, and all I'm going to say to that is maybe.
Right.
I'm not saying that it's of no use at all. I totally understand the whole mask thing. If you sneeze, it's not going to throw it up and over the next aisle.
Right.
Except according to what my scientist friend said to me the other day, was it aerosols it. So what does that tell you?
Makes it finer, right, as it goes through the mask.
Finer as it goes through the mask. Yeah. So
yeah, and then there's people question the whole pathogen theory, but I think there's probably a balance somewhere in the middle of all of these things. You know, I've read a book on the contagion myth. It's like, well, I think there's maybe somewhere in between all of these things where the truth lies. You know, so
it's so it's like what, and I think every show we talk about this. What can we do? We can drink clean, filtered, energized water, distilled water. A good quality water we can drink. We can drink, really great herbal teas. Or in England, we have a great brand of tea, and I don't get any kickbacks off of this. There's a great brand of tea called Pucker, and they do. I spoke to the guy that started it, Sebastian Pole, a few years ago, and the detail that they put into the herbs that they find, the little tea bags that they use. The fact back then they were plastic lined, which was a problem for him, but because he uses high grade medicinal herbs in his teas that are full of essential oils, if he doesn't use a plastic lined tea bag, then the oils go rancid.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of thought have gone into his product. So and you can buy those now in nearly any mainstream supermarket, but think about if you're going to drink a herbal tea, think about what you're drinking it for.
Right.
Think about the tea that you're drinking. Is it going to boost your immune system? Because there are loads of teas out there that are going to boost your immune system. They've got lemon, ginger, and honey. I mean, I'm not an advocate of honey, but that's by the by. The average person, it's great. Think about licorice to boost your adrenals. Think about lemon balm, great antibacterial, antiviral, antifungal lemon balm. Just think about essential oils in your environment. Dropping some essential oils like lavender on your pillow. It's also antiviral, antimicrobial. Great thing, helps you sleep. They're not telling us really basic things. As we say every show, do your best to introduce some organic food. Eat, those of you that can, eat as much organic as you possibly can. Introduce vegetable juices. So, from what Alex is saying now, what he's been on the show, sauerkraut, fermented foods. Get good sleep and go outside and exercise.
Mm-hmm.
So
Tim on here says, I don't know if we want to address this question, but can you let me know your take on the vaccine? Is it too quick, or is it just a glorified flu jab? So I think it's definitely not a glorified flu jab. It's definitely a whole other thing, because it's an RNA vaccine.
But it's an mRNA vaccine.
Yeah, modified, right? And it does something where it's supposed to be creating the cells into a vaccine factory, and it's never been done in history ever before, and yet we rolled this out in less than a year with 8 weeks of testing trials, and it's been released under emergency order as not fully tested, and we're actually putting it out for the next 2 years in testing phase. So people are being made as a guinea pig for this situation. So it's it's
dire. It's
yeah.
I mean, the consequences for these people. Oh, we're going to get into conspiracy now, man.
Well, it's okay. Let's have the discussion.
So I got sent an email by another doctor, a mutual doctor friend of mine and Phil's, and he was saying it's actually intervening the Nuremberg laws that were brought out after the Second World War. So if any doctors are listening, great. If you guys are injecting this, you are intervening the Nuremberg rules, and that holds real dire consequences for you. So get the insert out, read the insert, read what's in it, read the fact that the mRNA changes. This is what my scientist friend told me the other day, which I have a lot of respect for. He used to create pharmaceutical drugs. That was his job. He was actually the creation. They were his babies. He used to make them. He said the thing with mRNA is it actually changes the function of every single cell in the human body.
Wow.
And I was like, no way. And he said, yes, that is what they're doing.
On December the 18th, they had 2.8% reported reactions. So this is like anaphylactic reactions. And that's just within a few days of taking it. Like, and they're supposed to be getting second doses, all sorts of crazy stuff. It's just...
Well, there was one nurse actually on British television where, and I think they made a mistake, where they actually filmed her taking it. And while they were still filming her, she had an allergic reaction.
Is that the one that passed out?
Yeah.
I think it was like 17 minutes after the vaccine. They're like, oh, well, she always passes out. This is normal. It's like, wait, what? You know, so I mean, I think the biggest thing is people need to know this is not like, regardless of, we're not going to get into the conspiracy of all vaccines, but people need to know, firstly, it's not being fully tested. You know, it's you are the test case. You are part of the test group if you take this vaccine right now. So probably not a good idea.
One of the things, Phil, that they can't do in a year, and there's no conspiracy in this, it's fact. They can't test for long-term effect.
Right.
You can't create something and trial it. They have trialed it, to be fair, they have trialed it, but you can't create something and trial it within a year to take into account long-term effects.
Yeah, exactly. You can't.
In my simple mind, and forgive me if you think I'm simple, that's it.
Right. So Tim's positive question on the side of that is, okay, well, what can we do? Because I think a lot of people are going, it's crazy, but this year has been like, these are the things, and then when we get to the vaccine, which they've clearly said that the vaccine doesn't mean you don't need to social distance, doesn't mean you don't need to wear a mask anymore, doesn't mean you're not contagious anymore. They've said these things openly, publicly. So what the heck is the point of that? It's fine, Tim, don't worry. We like conspiracy. We need to have a healthy discussion. But everything we talk about is about building immunity, the microbiome, like being healthy, getting sunshine. It's not like, okay, I mean, sure, we can be very specific and like take natural vitamin C or eat vitamin C rich berries or fruits. Sure, all of those things. And then the specific things like medicinal mushrooms, we can get into all of that. But I think for Phil and I, and Phil can correct me, is like the whole lifestyle, the whole thing is your immunity, is your creating health. It's not just like, okay, well, I don't need to change my lifestyle, but I can take echinacea tea every day and I'll be fine. I'm sure that's gonna help you, but if you don't change your ways and you don't create a full whole person healing, which is an immersion, whether it's, you know, connection to nature, getting exercise, getting fresh air, eating a healthy diet, eating fresh fruits, you know, getting good community, good friends, good family. It's the whole picture that creates that cycle, looking at, knowing about detox, knowing about cleansing, all of those things. Yeah, it's not just like, take this herb. And I think that's the message in the world is like, that it's being put out is like, okay, we're going to get this vaccine and that's the answer. Or it's like this latest drug, this is the answer. I mean, all that this vaccine does potentially is suppress symptoms, which is the opposite of what we want. We want symptoms because they are the body's message. You have a little bit of a cold or a runny nose or a cough. It's like, well, why do I have this cough? Why do I have a headache? Like maybe I'm not drinking enough water, or maybe I was exposed to pollutants. Like, it's the bigger picture that we got to look at.
Maybe I need a good colonic.
Exactly.
So Phil, on a positive note, right, what my
Yeah.
scientist friend was saying is the virus has a 70 in 70 days it's done. There's a decline, and there's a reoccurring pattern that shows after 70 days of it first coming, there's a decline and it's done. Herd immunity, 15% of the population is adequate to create herd immunity. That's the positive of it all.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, I found I had a bit of paper in my van, Phil, and I was taking. I didn't phone him to talk to him. I phoned him to place an order with some product for people, and the guy answered the phone at the company, and I was like, oh, well, I've got you here. Can I just ask you a few questions on your intake? So that's actually really positive news for everybody. That's what he says, and
Right.
to me, he knows his stuff.
Yeah.
He hasn't necessarily done the research and the work himself, but the thing that I love about him and his age, I mean, he's got to be in his mid to late 70s, is he knows number one, he knows how to research, he knows where to find the research, and he knows how to interpret the research. It's not like us doing research, we kind of follow what people tell us. He knows where to look. He knows what journals to look in to find what he knows where to look. So I totally trust what he's saying, so much that, you know, I've told my mum and dad this stuff. I haven't known him to be wrong either, which is really interesting. You know, he's really very, very switched on. Anyway, I don't want to go down that route anymore, because, you know, that's a positive note for people. 15% herd immunity is adequate for this.
Right.
That's
and
really
it's like we say, it's like, yes, take care of those people who have underlying health conditions, who are at risk. Get them on a really good, healthy, solid program. Everyone else, whatever it is, we need to let it run its course, and we need to learn how to take care of our bodies in a better way. And if we should be getting a natural immunity to it, or we get used to whatever that pollutant is in the environment, and our body learns how to cleanse or detox from that. So, but yeah, we really want to take care of people. We want, you know, the elderly to be taken care of, to get fresh air, sunlight, organic food, vitamin C every day. We want, you know, the people with underlying health conditions to, you know, be taken care of in terms of being put on a healthy program. We really do care about people. And if a mask is good for you, wear a clean mask. Go ahead, but make sure it's clean every day. Make sure it's fresh every day. Go ahead and do it. And then
yeah. I think that's crucial with the masks. Is the, you know, there's now reports about this bacterial pneumonia, which is, you know, that's serious. So do yourselves a favor, you know, wash your masks often, and if you've got throwaway ones, change them often. I mean, it's just really, it's sensible. But
avoid these surgical masks, because they are PTFE, which is the I think it's like the DuPont product, and then they're also, I think, sprayed with ethylene dioxide or some sort of gas. So probably not the best to be wearing those. I mean, especially they're mass produced now, so they're probably full of all sorts of pollutants. So
you know, on the positive note, we're going to say the same thing. Get some good sleep.
Mm-hmm.
You know, look at what's going to boost your immune system. So, you know, look at the microbiome, of course, was our big one today. So look at, you know, what are takeaways? What can you take away from this? You can take away good water, organic food. You can take away sauerkraut. In America, it's dead easy to get. In England, it's not quite so easy. There's certain health food shops that you can buy it from. Add in things like, you know, look up medicinal mushrooms, vitamin D3, and it's important. It's not just vitamin D. It's important that it's vitamin D3. And then if you want to take the next step up, vitamin K. Vitamin K helps you to metabolize vitamin D3. Again, really important things to know. Vitamin C. Get a really good quality vitamin C, because lots of vitamin C, ascorbic acid now, is made out of GMO food. So make sure that you get in a good quality vitamin C, vitamin D, medicinal mushrooms. things that are going to boost you, like licorice root, drink licorice root tea, really good for the adrenals to keep you up if you're stressful. Things that soothe you, so like lavender essential oils or chamomile tea, chamomile essential oil, really really important. And good sleep, you know, get to bed 10 o'clock, get to bed, get up in the morning, breathe some you know, make sure that you're getting fresh air. There's so many health bits of advice we can give you, but we'll just do your head in. So anything simple to add for, yeah, see Phil's plants behind. Plants are really great for transmuting chemicals. Certain plants in the house will transmute chemicals, and therefore if the plants are transmuting chemicals, you're not, so therefore it lifts your immune system. Your immune system's governed by your lymphatic system. So again, move your body, get your body outside, do some exercise, move your body.
So someone put a little link. JD Muma, he's a guy he posted on our little Facebook. He's like, so are you saying that this UK government website doesn't exist? And he's got a link to like how to wear face coverings, you know, and it's a UK website. JD, that's not really our point here. Is like it's you know, it's the daily mass education through the TV. People are not going to these websites. They're watching what the media is saying every day. And I mean, I know you've seen it, JD, where it's like, wear any covering, wear any face covering. I've seen it throughout Arizona where it's like, you know, just wear a face covering, and you go to the store and there's not really any guidelines. It's just like, wear a cloth mask. And it's like, there's no guidance on the signs that are there. And sure, that, you know, I'm not going to deny that there are definitely guidelines that are out there, but it's not really in the mainstream. It's not put out to the people a lot. I mean, I'll go around and I'll see what people are wearing. I mean, I've seen people come to our production facility, and I'm just like, and this guy came and he was wearing this mask, and it was disgusting. And I'm like, you know, you're supposed to change those regularly. And he's like, well, oh, so I gave him a fresh one, and he had no idea. So I get, yeah, sure, there is some education, but sure, again, going to our point, this is yes, it's going about face masks, but they're not talking about eating a clean diet, eating a healthy diet, changing your ways, all of those things. So it's a bigger picture, and like we've said all along, it's not black and white, JD. It's not black and white. So
yeah, and we're not saying it's black and white, and we're not saying that it's simple.
Right.
What we're doing our best to do is to give people some actual health advice and some health education so they can actually make choices. At the moment, there's no one saying, hey, don't stock up on shit, stock up on organic food. No one's saying that. They're just
at least in the mainstream. Sure, there are some great people out there talking about health, and there are some people starting to make strides. I heard that in Mexico, they've been having some, I think McCullough posted this. It wasn't out in the mainstream. It's on McCullough's website, and McCullough has been very suppressed. But he's talking about in Mexico, they're actually removing junk food from schools because, like, due to COVID, they're like, oh, well, we better like address the obesity challenge in our kids. And like, so they're taking junk food out of schools in Mexico. So there definitely are some things that are being addressed. But again, it's not on the mainstream. It's not on the nightly news. It's not on what the majority of the people see on a daily basis is our point. So yeah,
that's our
not
point.
black and white. Yeah.
and of course, wherever you go in the world, there are government guidelines available online. I'm sure there are, and you do have to go and look for them.
Right.
So we're not saying by any stretch of the imagination that everything we're saying is true and correct and within the guidelines. It's just the information we're just trying to give people on some, not so much alternative, but add-on information, where if people are struggling with, but what can I do? What can I do to help myself? And, you know, that's what we're doing our best to cover.
Right. Great. Well, this is probably a good time to end. We got a little fired up there, so
that'll get some responses, Phil. So thanks, Tim, for dropping that little bombshell on us. We weren't quite going.
Well, that was JD on Facebook, and then my friend Tanya, who is in the UK, talking about they don't talk about obesity, but yeah, we need to have these discussions every day. It's like, and you know, like you say, we're not saying it's black and white. We just want to have the discussion, and let's get it out on the table. So, yeah.
Yeah, cool. Thank you, Phil. Thanks everyone for watching. It's been brilliant.
I'm Phil.
And I'm Phil.
And this has been another fabulous episode of the Phil and Phil show. So go ahead, Phil, tell us about what you can do on our website and all that stuff.
So yeah, if you like what we do, please go to our website, philandphil.com, and go to the link donate for us. We really want to keep doing what we're doing. Donations are always welcome. We'd love it. It'd be really useful for us to keep going and improving what we do. Any suggestions of anyone that you would like on the show, or if anyone that's watching, anyone wants to come on with a good subject that's helpful, fantastic.
Great. Thank you everybody watching. We really appreciate you. We really appreciate doing this show, and it helps us evolve and grow too. So thank you.
Thanks guys. Thanks Phil.